Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. Well, Derrick Lewis does what Derrick Lewis does, and that is why we love Derrick Lewis, because Derrick Lewis does what Derrick Lewis does. I don't know for his benefit or our benefit, probably both. We'll dive into it, and we're going to look forward. There's actually a really competitive Bellator card coming up from Paris, France this weekend. We'll dive into that. Dana White says he wants to move away from the Apex a little bit. Sure, we'll dive into that a little bit as well to help break it all down. You can follow him on X, John Morgan _MMA. His name is John Morgan. What up, man?
Listen, man, we ended up having a pretty fun card in St. Louis with this UFC event over the weekend. But I'm curious off the top, when you say that the teaser was Derrick Lewis does what Derrick Lewis does, are we talking about during the fight? Or are we talking about after the fight? Because the man has established patterns both in the way he fights and in the way he celebrates, as he showed this weekend.
All right, well, I guess let's start with the fight because, it is what it is. Derrick Lewis does what Derrick Lewis does. What does Derrick Lewis does? He gets taken out and then finds the most unconventional way to get up. Literally, I'm a jiu-jitsu instructor. I teach a morning class in jiu-jitsu. I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. We tell you, do not do what he does. If you're mounted, do not roll yourself belly down and give up your back. But he does. And he really does it in a way. I've actually watched that sequence. And that happened, if you're catching up, that happened, midway through round number 1. He got taken down. He got mounted. He turned himself belly down, gave up his back, and seemingly rolled straight into Nascimento's full guard. So he reversed the position. Now, watching it back multiple times, there is a technique there. Because it's a timing technique. It's all timing. And if you don't time it well, but it's a timing technique that I think can only happen on the bigger guys and not necessarily the smaller guys. What meaning is, the smaller guys, when somebody gives up their back and goes belly down, those hip hooks are coming in immediately. And I think just from mobility standpoint and nimbleness standpoint. On the bigger guys, you kind of have to then probably set back a little bit, flatten back out, put the hooks in a little bit. And maybe Derrick Lewis knew that. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. But he used the technique and he used it, I guess, flawlessly.
Well, it's funny, and I'm glad you pointed it out because, he definitely knows what he's doing. I mean, it's kind of a joke, right? Derrick Lewis, takedown defense is basically just get up, right? I mean, it's like once he's down, it's just like, hey, just get up. Like, well, what do you do? Well, you just get up. But I'm so glad you pointed out the fact that there is some timing to it, right? I mean, I think, as you said wisely, part of it, I think, is just the way he's built, right? Like, he knows he's not too worried about giving up his neck because there's not much of a neck there to really wrap your arm under, right? He's built really thick right there. So I think he's not worried about it. Also, his torso is huge, right? So he's not as worried, as you said, about the hooks coming quickly in, especially against fellow heavyweights who aren't probably the most nimble, flexible, speedy guys. So those two things play in his favor. But he uses that to his advantage, and then he uses that timing. And, he's done it throughout his career, and he does it effectively. And I just think he deserves, it's funny to watch because it's like you said, it's no technique, but it is technique, but it's doing something, you know what I mean? And I think that's worth pointing out because, not to jump too far down the card and talk about some other things, but you look at a guy like Robelis Despon, who came in very highly touted as this Taekwondo Olympic medalist, and he is dangerous. Don't get me wrong. He's scary, powerful. He's long. He's dangerous. He's going to knock people out in his career. But when he got taken down, the hips are flat on the mat, right? And you see it. It's like you're not even making an effort to put hands on the hip, push away, turn to your side, create. And so I think Derrick Lewis, as much as it maybe not, Damian Maia levels of jiu-jitsu in terms of technique, he deserves credit for the things that he does because he uses his frame to his advantage. He uses timing to his advantage. And more than anything, Eric, he's at least doing something. You know what I mean? And sometimes you see that with guys at all levels. They get taken down and they're flat on their back. And as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, if your hips are flat on the ground, you're not getting up.
I say that all the time. I say, hey, listen, it's okay to get reversed and get put on bottom, but what's not okay is to accept being flat on your back. So it's okay. And to be bottom, you play bottom guard, you play bottom half guard. Whatever you want to do is you do not want to lay flat though. And you don't want to accept that position. And he doesn't do that. So let's kind of like fast forward to another time he got taken down. I think it was in the second round. And this is a technique. He says just get up, but this is a legitimate technique. It's literally a stiff arm sit-up. And if you watch the way he does it, he'll frame, turn that into a stiff arm, then use that power at that point. So that is legitimate technique. You know, in a gi, a lot of guys will grab that cross collar and use it and do it that way. But he's doing it the same way you would in a gi minus the fabric.
Yep, exactly right, man. He knows what he's doing there. So I think that's part of what's fun about Derrick Lewis, right? Is it just seems like, I mean, look, he's as hard hitting as it gets, right? As he, showed after these grappling sequences, the man has power. And when you look at his grappling, and it's like it looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. Like he's just an amateur out there, that just, oh, well, I'll just, roll around here and somehow try to get back to my feet. But there is a method to his madness. I think that's what's so fun about watching. It's those subtle little things that he does. You're like, oh, wait a minute. There's really a strategy to what he's doing. It's not like he's out there and doesn't ever train the grappling game and is just trying to get by as just a striker. No, he knows what he's doing.
And furthermore, he lulls you into a complacency to be able to do that. Because if you watch Derrick Lewis a lot of times, it's like he'll just, it looks like he's just resigned his fate to being on his back or being on his side. He's resigned. He's just resigned to that. And you're like, oh man, Derrick needs to get up. And this guy is kind of advancing positions on him, maybe passes the guard or settles into a half guard, throws some punches at him, where I don't think Derrick Lewis is necessarily worried about getting knocked out on the bottom, right? So he kind of like will eat a few punches, and he almost lures his opponent into being like, I'm comfortable here on top. Derrick Lewis is not getting up. I'm solidified in my position. Then that frame stiff arm, bam, and he goes. And for such a big guy, he moves fast and powerfully when he decides to go. But in my opinion, it's because he's lured the guy into, okay, now we're in my rhythm. And then Lewis changes the rhythm immediately.
Yeah, I mean, he knows as big and powerful as he is that, like, he's not really capable of pushing the pace hard for 25 minutes, right? That's why he even kind of jokes about the fact, like, bro, don't give me the main event. Give me the co-main event. That way I could go 3 rounds. I don't have to pace myself through 5. But he knows, hey, man, I need to have these, short bursts of explosive movement. If I do that, you know what I mean? Because he does it even on the feet, right? Where he just kind of just looks like the pace is slow. He'll fake the stuff where he's, putting his hands on his knees, where he's kind of baiting people in. But he does those things, those rhythm changes that you talked about, both in the grappling and on the standing department. That's what makes him so effective. He picks the moments to be that powerful and explosive and to rip forward rather than just, constantly be moving, which he knows will tire him out. There's a genius to it, man. I mean, there's a reason he's been in the UFC in the top level for a decade, right? I mean, a guy that looks like he might have been a flash in the pan, but, is he really capable of performing at this level? There's a reason he's been there for that long, and a reason that after this fight, UFC President Dana White even said, like, I love that guy, man. Whatever that guy wants to do, I'm happy to let him do it.
He was hell-bent on getting a takedown, and he got a takedown, too. Like, you don't see that at Derrick Lewis, right? And it was beautiful. It was kind of like a headlock, trip takedown / hip toss type, depending on how you want to classify it.
Little judo in there.
And now he didn't maintain the position, but he did get him down. He proved a point. But let's go to knocking people out, because that's what people love from Derrick Lewis. And what kind of surprised me early on is he was very content, dirty boxing, staying in a clinch. And I don't know if that was from a standpoint of he intentionally wanted, but he kept on putting himself there, and he didn't really try and take himself out of it all too much. But it could be we seeing a next evolution out of Derrick Lewis, because he might know that, hey, if I can clinch on somebody, because he's throwing, regardless if they're glancing blows, they are still big, heavy shots that he was hitting Nascimento with, and they're banging off the top of the dude's head, and then maybe ripping an uppercut, albeit not as clean as he wants. It's still a threat. So then once eventually he gets taken down, he gets back up. The guy's like, I might not want to engage in a clinch with Derrick Lewis. I literally think that was intended, because then in the second round, no, was it third round? When was the finish?
Third round.
Third round. So in the third round, then they started trading at range. And they hadn't traded at range the entire fight. And Derrick Lewis just smacks a huge overhand that put Nascimento on, the stanky leg, which eventually makes him fall down, ground and pound finish. Herzog calls a halt to the contest. So I ask you this question. Do you think that dirty boxing was a masterful game plan that he had going in? Maybe let's not. I mean, I don't know, because I haven't really seen that out of him, but he intentionally put himself there multiple times.
It's interesting, right? Because I think it's a great question. And it would be very successful, right? Because he knows everybody wants to take him down, right? I mean, nobody goes there with Derrick Lewis saying, hey, let's stand and trade and see who hits hardest. We already know who hits hardest, right? Let's take you to the ground. And so,
hot take, Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, we already know. We don't need to test that out. So I think you're right. I mean, I think there is something to that where it's like, hey, if I clinch with them and show them that's not a great position for them to be in, now maybe they got to be at range and they're going to have to shoot from range. And I'm going to have more time to snuff it out, land a knee and uppercut, one of those Curtis Blades finishes, something like that. But it was interesting because between the second and third round, his coach, Bob Perez, was like, man, we got to get back to what we do. We knock people out. He's like, I need you to put combinations together, lengthen the number of shots in your combinations. And what did he do? He goes out there and lands that massive right hand. So, I don't know if that was something he felt on the fly or something that he went in with the game plan, but there certainly is the capability of it being effective and kind of getting people to say, hey, stay at range because you're not going to like what happens if you get too close to me.
Yeah, the only reason I think it could have been intentional, albeit never seen it before, is he was hitting him hard from the clinch.
Yeah.
Like, these shots were not soft shots. So, and then, in the third round, now it could have been prompting from his coaches. And I mean, I know, and the clinch is taxing position, and Derrick Lewis, to his own account, he's terrified of getting tired in the cage.
Right. Yep.
Albeit he makes these huge movements, which doesn't show that he's terrified, because how many jumping switch kicks did he try and hit that fight?
That's that signature switch kick that he throws, man. It's crazy.
I'm like, wow, if somebody's terrified of getting tired, I mean, you're engaging in the clinch. Like, you are actively engaging in the clinch. Yep. You're throwing multiple, big explosive movements with very little probability of success, especially when you're not getting your foot up to their head even.
It's a jumping switch kick to the body. It's hilarious, man. Yeah. But he loves to do it.
Yeah, but then he does what he does. So
right hand, I mean, right hand. And Jason Herzog gave him every chance to get out. To be honest with you, I wouldn't have hated it if Herzog stopped that a little bit earlier, to be honest with you. I mean, I know he wants to give the guys, it's the main event. He's trying to let, the fight play out. I wouldn't have even hated if he stopped it earlier, man. I mean, Derrick Lewis starts hitting those shots on the ground. He wasn't coming back. That first right hand was so nasty. So big finish.
The sound of that right hand. I mean, it perforated through the television, but back to Herzog. I mean, listen, Herzog's the best in the game. Right?
Top notch.
And a lot of fans will look at that and say, well, he's holding on to a single, right? And I know what Herzog's looking for there. That's a survival tactic to a degree of instinctual, I'm instinctually grabbing the leg. And Herzog's seeing if he's trying to advance up, or he wasn't. And even though Derrick Lewis wasn't getting some nasty ground and pound finishes, Nascimento was clearly out of it because he was never trying to advance up and grab. He was holding a single, but he was never trying to advance up to elevate the single or to dump the single or to change an angle on the single. He was just literally kind of laying on his side hip, hugging the single. And so, could it have been stopped earlier? Yes, absolutely. Probably could have been stopped after the punch and he went down. But by the instinctual motion, Herzog is granting him the opportunity. You have an advantageous position if you know what to do with it there, and if you are cognitively there to be able to execute. He gave him
Absolutely.
every opportunity to do it. He didn't advance it at all, even though the ground and pound wasn't there. And it was kind of pitter patter from an angle that Derrick Lewis couldn't get massive power torques from the angle. But Jason Herzog, I mean, he's an OG, man.
Yeah, you laid it out perfectly, right? Because as you said, it's instinctual a lot. I mean, you see that. I mean, you see guys. I mean, we see guys grapple referees, right? I mean, they're just literally going on instinct. They don't know what's going on there. But that was a real opportunity. Had Nascimento been able to, run the pipe on that single, or maybe reach back and grab the other leg or something. I mean, he could have totally changed the momentum of the fight, but he just wasn't there to do it. Fighting
or
on
even
instinct.
grab it to pull a half guard or
sure,
whatever.
Absolutely. A lot of options there, but he was not there. And boy, let's be honest, when Derrick Lewis, it doesn't matter what angle, what power level he's throwing, those aren't fun to take, man. But that first right hand was just cracking. Like you said, when they replayed it with sound, it was like, oh, those are the ones when you're cage side, man, you just feel them in your bones.
All right, let's get post-fight.
Yep.
Or I wouldn't even call it post-fight. It's like immediate aftermath of TKO stoppage.
Oh, my goodness.
This is evolving.
Yeah.
It's an ever-evolving process now of this celebration. By the way, most knockouts in UFC and heavyweight history, like, it goes on and on. Like, Derrick Lewis, just don't get touched by this guy. But now and I think this is like the last 3 wins now where he immediately takes the shorts off.
Right. Obviously, after the initial one, when he, he said he was a little bit more. That's right. I was trying to be a little bit more PC about it, but yes, that is exactly what he said.
Those balls were hot. I mean, what do you do?
What do you do?
In on that first one, it was the greatest because he's like, Joe Rogan's like, "Why'd you take your balls off?" Or
Why'd you
take your shorts off? And he's like, "My balls were hot." And then Joe Rogan, like classically, he goes, "I understand."
That was a great one.
Yeah. But yeah, so takes the shorts off, kind of like fans out Nascimento a little bit, runs around, collapses himself, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, but something else is uncomfortable down here now. I'm going to take my cup off and chuck it."
Eric, I have never been more happy to not be on press row at an event, because if I'm there, that's landing right in my lap. That was center seat row 1 of media row where that cup landed. I've never been more happy in my life to be sitting and watching that thing from home and not have Derrick Lewis's cup in my lap.
Well, let me ask you. Let's assume you were. Okay? What do you do with said cup? You throw it back? Do you not catch it? I mean, it's coming to you, like instinctually you would probably catch it. What do you do in that moment?
I mean, it's like a fish that's undersized. You catch it and release it immediately. You know what I mean? You're like because you're right. Instinctually, you're probably going to reach up and grab it, and then you're going to realize what's in your hand, and you let it go. I mean, you just don't handle another man's cup. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of etiquette 101. I mean, you understand. You see a cup lying around the gym. Do you pick it up off the floor and put it somewhere? No, heck no.
I never have.
Especially not if it's fresh out of action. You know what I mean? Like hot in use. Like no. So I think you would probably instinctually grab it, unfortunately, because it's coming at you. And then I would think you would
put your hands in your face.
100% there. And then you drop it like a hot potato, man. I mean, you just try to get rid of that thing as quickly as possible. Hopefully, if maybe, depending on your instincts, maybe you can flick it back at him so he can grab it back. I mean, you'd hate to like kind of just throw it and then it hits some, poor lady in the head or something behind you. You'd have to be careful.
Liability on you.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be that person. You know what I mean? So
I want to go a little deeper down this now, because said cup comes over octagon, lands in your lap. You catch it. You go, "Oh, what do I do with it now?" Now I'm looking at you right now through this computer screen, and I see these great memorabilias on the wall. Literally, I would think that you would have to get a shadow box frame for Derrick Lewis's cup and put it right between, Brock Lesnar and Forrest Griffin, and just put it right there.
It's funny. So I don't know the gentleman, the media member that did actually end up catching it, but apparently he got Derrick Lewis to autograph it. And in the post-fight press conference, he actually asked Dana White to get it autographed as well. And a lot of people gave the guy grief. And there probably are better forums than in the middle of a press conference to ask the president, or the CEO, excuse me, I'll always mess up his title, ask the CEO, Dana White, to autograph it. There's probably better forums to do it, like maybe offline, on the side, et cetera, et cetera. But you make a point. I mean, that is an incredibly unique piece of memorabilia. Now, what is the value of said memorabilia for a collector? Like if you're trying to hit the resale market value with it, I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot of fan demand for that, but it is an awfully unique piece of memorabilia. So I don't begrudge the gentleman who asked to get an autograph, maybe not in the middle of the press conference, but yeah, I think if you catch the cup and you don't throw it on, maybe you try to drop it in some sanitizer first. I don't know. A game used jersey, you want a little blood or something on there, but a game used cup, I'm not sure. I think you probably want to sanitize that one.
I would think that you would, hindsight being 2020, you carry around an evidence bag like the police use.
I just reach in and
drop it in the evidence bag, seal it up.
Little biohazard bag on there.
Right. And then you can take it out with gloves, put it under and then put it in your shadow box. I mean, listen, when Derrick Lewis is fighting now, carry evidence bags.
You might have to. Derrick Lewis, I'll tell you a funny side story about Derrick Lewis. He's such a nice guy. I actually one time wore a red shirt Cageside for him because he had told me that he thought my blue shirt being Cageside was bad luck for him. So I wore a blue shirt, but I had a red t-shirt on underneath it. And when he came to fight, I took the blue shirt off and had a red shirt on for him so that I wasn't causing him any bad juju. I wasn't giving him any bad luck. That's how well loved Derrick Lewis is. Everybody that's around Derrick Lewis loves him. That guy is the absolute
best. Did he acknowledge it?
He did. Yeah. He was laughing about it. He was like, and he won the fight. I was like, oh, that was it.
So that little blip downturn was really John Morgan's fault.
It was, those couple losses he had in a row, it was all me. It was all some bad mojo coming from my blue shirt. We corrected that. We broke the streak, and now he's riding high again.
So all fun and games aside, listen, he's a force in the heavyweight division. Always has been and always will be, just by the one-shot power. But he's in a very unique position. It's like, do we really want to see him make a title run? Probably not, right? Does he really want to go for a title run? I don't know, but I doubt it. Like, I bet you he wants matchups that, I'm not going to say favorably matchups, but good matchups. And on the other side of the spectrum, I don't want to see unfavorable matchups for him. I want to see guys that literally, that pose a threat on the ground to him, but that are wanting to do that. So he's almost, like I always say on the show, like Andre the Giant was a spectacle, back in wrestling days. It's like almost he's in that same situation. Like he's a marquee feature of it. Like, let's keep him there, right?
Yeah. 100%. Derrick Lewis is a superstar, right? Because again, he's so hilarious, right? The things he says and does, he's entertaining. His fighting style is what we want. It's a throwback, right? You know what I mean? We just sat here and praised the subtleties of his grappling, but of course, you wouldn't consider him a grappling expert. I mean, he's just one of the hardest hitters in the game, and if he wins, he's going to land a thunderous right hand at some point, and that's what's going to get it done. So, yeah. Anytime, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what town it's in. I mean, when he's in Houston, obviously his hometown, of course, it's big. But I've seen the guy fight everywhere. No matter where he is, people just absolutely love him. So you're right. Listen, I know he's, he fights for his family, right? He makes it very clear from the beginning. He does this for money. I don't think he cares about the belt whatsoever, but the belt does bring more money along with it. But, the UFC realizes what they have in him. They compensate him very well. He gets paid well. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I look at a matchup. I want to see, I start looking at, he said, look, I want Jailton Almeida. Give me that fight back. I don't know. I think that's always going to be a tough matchup. You talk about a title run. Like, man, Tom Aspinall, terrible matchup for him. John Jones, Stipe Miocic, probably also bad matchups for him. You know what I mean? So, I don't know that it's there. But, man, I look at the name Jairzinho Rosenstruck that's on the list right there, and I say, you know what, man? Why don't we make that? Put those two sluggers together against each other. They're entertaining as hell. Make that the next matchup. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter who that you put them against. People are going to show up. They're going to be excited. And I'm with, to be honest, I don't really want to see guys that are grappling threats against him. I mean, I just want to see people that are willing to maybe try and stand and bang. The more striker versus striker matchups you can do with Derrick Lewis, I think the more everybody enjoys it.
Couldn't agree with you more. Right? I mean, it's like and this is the UFC, so we're not throwing anybody to the wolves, especially at that point, right? So, but it's just like he is a featured fighter that people pay to see, and so let's keep the fans happy. And then, however the cards fall at that point, the cards fall.
I agree. It's fun. It's just entertaining, Matt. And again, he's one of those select few. There's been guys. The ones that I always used to use as a perfect example is like the Diaz brothers, right? Like Nick and Nate Diaz. If they're announced for a fight, you don't care who's on the other side, right? Like it doesn't matter. You're tuning in. Like you care about watching those guys fight. I think that's what Derrick Lewis has accomplished for himself. If you know Derrick Lewis is fighting, you're like, I'm tuning in. Does it matter who the opponent is? I mean, of course it does, but that doesn't, decide whether or not you're going to watch it or not. You hear Derrick Lewis is fighting, I'm tuning in. He's got that. Not many people have that. He's got it.
And special shout out to the St. Louis, Missouri crowd. They were on fire Saturday night.
Electric crowd, biggest gate in the history of U.S. Fight Night events. Man, they brought it. They were rewarded with some excellent fights, man. They really were. They were rewarded with their, some great performances by their hometown guys. Joaquin Buckley, especially, man. I mean, man, what a tough fight. We kind of said going into that, man. I know you got on the card you wanted to be, but this is a tough matchup. But man, did he prove that guy's a superstar in the making? He's great on the mic. He's great in the cage.
Conor McGregor though, like,
Well, listen. He caught some grief for it, and I understand. And you hear that a lot, right? When you have a moment on the mic, call out a fight that could potentially happen, right? Because that's, the matchmakers will see that, they'll reward you for it. Is Conor McGregor going to fight him? No. I mean, Dana White flatly said in the press conference, like, no. But at least if you're going to call out Conor McGregor, call him out like that. Normally it's somebody who, uses one of Conor's lines or just says the real money fight or what, just someone like, I mean, to go in on him and to say that I did research on generations of your family and they're a bunch of hoes. And I mean, he was just going off on it. At least if you're going to call him out, I mean, be dirty about it, man. He called him out. So I get it. It was a swing and a miss in terms of potentially putting a matchup together, but it didn't make me cringe so much. Like sometimes when you see people like, come on, man, that's going to happen. He at least had some pizzazz with his call out.
Yeah, he had pre-planned it for sure. All right, so let's look ahead. Right, we have UFC, another fight night next Saturday, but on Friday, it's I forgot what they're calling exactly. Bellator Championship Series.
That's right, Champions Series, right? And this is going to be from the Core Arena in Paris, France. I've been there. It's actually a pretty cool little venue. Nice. Look at that humble brag there. Yeah, I've been to Paris. I've done some stuff.
Yeah, I went there for an NBA event, or actually like a Paris All-Star game one time. They brought me out.
I've performed inside that arena before. It's I
sold out. I've sold out.
Quaint venue. The way the acoustics really sound when you're down in the center of it, like right on the court. The way the acoustics sound on that court in Paris, it's something special, John. It's something special.
The architecture is just gorgeous in Paris.
But yes, they are going to Paris with a fun card, man. The Bellator Champions Series. This is a good event.
Yeah, so let's start at the top, man. Patty Mix, Magomed Magomedov. Listen, Patty Mix, as we have said, maybe the best bantamweight in the world.
He might be. And look at you humble bragging again. You're on a Patty basis with him. I still call him Patchy, man. But I mean, his name is Patrick, but he goes by Pat. I just found out his girlfriend, Tatiana Suarez, calls him Patty. So I didn't know you were like that. But Patchy Mix.
Maybe I saw it in an interview and it popped into my head. I don't know. Maybe I heard that or I don't know. Okay, Patchy, my bad. I'm sorry I'm getting too informal with him and too whatever.
I'm telling you, man. It's not those are the family ties you got. But no, he might literally be the best bantamweight on planet Earth right now. 19-1 on his record, continues to get better every single time out. The run that he's on, I mean, you look at this run, we talked about it before, but I just want to reiterate it for those that might not realize because, Bellator has changed ownership and there's been a lot going on about the organization. So maybe you kind of forgot about the run that he was on. But if we just go consecutively with his victories, Sergio Pettis, Rafion Stotts, the man that he's going to fight again on Friday, Magomed Magomedov, Kyoji Horiguchi. I mean, you could even go, really, I mean, James Gallagher and Albert Morales are talented fighters as well. Maybe not superstars, but the hardcores will know those are talented fighters as well. The only loss, the decision to Juan Archuleta. I mean, this man is on a run right now and has an argument to be the best 135-pounder in the world.
19 wins, 1 loss. 13 of those 19 wins are by submission. That's a great stat line.
Incredible grappler, man. The dude puts in work. Obviously training here in Las Vegas, over at Extreme Couture. We see him grinding over there quite a bit. And I mean, the dude is just talented. As good of a grappler as there is, relentless with his pace. Man, can just put it on you. And you said it. I mean, you look at, by the way, yeah, I probably didn't, should have even mentioned that, out of those 6 wins he's on right now, 5 of those are via finish, you know what I mean? So it's not like he's just outpointing people. I mean, he's absolutely finishing him. I mean, Sergio Pettis, round 2, Rafion Stotts, round 1, Magomed Magomedov, round 2, getting it done early against these guys. This man is good. If you haven't watched him, you need to. He's got some swagger about him as well. You know what I mean? He's fun on the mic.
The speed at which this dude operates on the ground, too, is next level.
It's so fun to watch. And you and I, listen, I think that's how the levels of fandom, right? My dad, for instance, a casual fan, right? But now, he's been watching up that he starts to really enjoy the grappling exchanges, right? And I think that's what happens. The first thing you see when you see a fight, if you don't know anything about MMA, is you just love striking, right? You see 2 dudes throwing, they got the small gloves on, it's amazing. You're like, this is great. But man, when you really start to study the intricacies of it, and of course, you a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, you understand the techniques and the skill and what it takes to do to watch that man perform. Unbelievable. The guy is great. And again, against incredibly talented competition as well.
Another guy who ain't so bad on the ground either is Magomedov. And, coming off a loss 2 fights ago, they're running this one back. Magomedov, he's got 10 submission wins out of his 20 wins, 4 TKOs. He's been to a decision 6 times. So this may be one of those matchups for Patchy that, it's almost tailor-made going against a wrestler type. A wrestler is only great if he has great anti-jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Right. And like, honestly, you may hear this and you think like, oh, what does that mean? Like, you don't have to be good at jiu-jitsu, but you can have great anti-jiu-jitsu. And a lot of the highest level wrestlers really do that because they understand just the nuances of where their body always needs to be. If you get wrestlers at that highest level, they know like, hey, I'm going to keep my chest on top of your chest, not below your chest if I'm in your guard. Like, I'm going to be high in your guard, right? I'm always going to keep an underhook. There's so many little nuances that people don't really realize that makes a guy who could be a white belt in jiu-jitsu, but a stud highest level wrestler. And it can negate jiu-jitsu just across the board by knowing the fundamentals of body positioning.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, Magomed Magomedov is a legitimate. I mean, this is a high-level fight. It does not matter, what banner this fight would take place under. I mean, this is a high-level matchup of 2 highly skilled individuals with incredible records. I mean, again, you look at Magomed Magomedov's record coming in. We're praising the 19-1. Hey, 20-3 in your career isn't too bad either. A Dagestani, so you understand. You always think, when you think of the Dagestani wrestling, I mean, obviously Islam Makhachev comes to mind right now, but Khabib Nurmagomedov is the one that I think everybody really thinks of. And you think of it, it's the chain wrestling together. It's the relentless pressure. I mean, but that's what makes Patchy so such a difficult matchup for Magomedov, right? Is that like, hey man, you think you're gonna just keep out shooting me? It's okay. You don't have to stop 1 takedown. You have to stop 100. Okay, I'll stop 100. Let's do that. I got it. Oh, you're gonna outwork me? You know what I mean? Because we know the commitment that these athletes have had. They've been wrestling since they were children, and they've been nonstop athletes, not partying along the way, not ever out of training camp. Well, guess what? Patchy Mix is that guy too. So it's like, you think I'm going to get tired? Do you think you're going to wear me out and attack me late in the fight? Guess what? That's not happening either. So big fight here, man. A lot on the line in this one, man. A lot here.
I think a fight, the co-main event, and it's starting to take a lot of the coverage, right? And we've talked about, headlining it, or the more known fighter, or but less experience, is the Cedric Doumbe. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Correct. Yep.
Now, world champion kickboxer, amazing striker.
Unbelievable.
Also, if you guys remember correctly, he was the one who got the metal stuck in his foot. Took a TKO loss for getting metal stuck in his foot.
So weird.
That was very, very weird. But he's taking on actually like my personal friend, a guy that I've been training with for a decade. Jaleel Willis, Bellator veteran, World Series of Fighting veteran, a seasoned vet, right? A guy who is, highest level wrestling, but with great hands, boxing. And this is a very interesting matchup. I was actually speaking to Saturday night. Me and Jaleel sat down for 20 minutes and talked this matchup specifically, because I was reffing a card this past weekend and he showed up as a spectator, and we just kind of chatted it up. And, they're really setting Jaleel up to be like, they're almost, in their opinion, throwing him to the lion's den, because the Cedric guy is becoming a big name in France, or already is a big name in France, and they want him to be that international guy for Bellator.
Yep.
But with a guy like Jaleel, who is so well-rounded and so, veteran savvy, he is 100%. And now, like Jaleel, he'll shoot me straight, like where he's really, really worried. He is. I've never seen him as confident going into a fight. And this is almost he thinks this type of opponent is tailor-made for him.
Jaleel Willis deserves so much respect just for stepping into this fight, right? Because Cedric Doumbe, as you said, a world champion kickboxer. I mean, if you've never seen the guy's highlights, go seek out his highlights. This dude is an absolute savage of a kickboxer who, by the way, is making a quick run in MMA and taking on very tough fights. Cedric Doumbe deserves a lot of respect, too. He's not trying to slow play his MMA career. As you said, he's a star in France, but Bellator, they want to make him a star internationally. They want him to be known worldwide. And PFL as well, by the way. I mean, he's already fought under the PFL banner. Now he's transitioning to Bellator. He can go back and forth between the organizations now if they're both under the same banner. But initially, I think everybody thought that Cedric Doumbe was going to be in a rematch with Basinger Chamsudinov, the guy he fought and suffered the TKO loss to because of the weird foot thing. Chamsudinov declined to take that rematch, according to PFL CEO Peter Murray. So they went to Derrick Anderson. Derrick Anderson, a tough guy as well. Derrick Anderson actually got in a motorcycle accident, so he had to withdraw from the fight. Jaleel Willis steps in on relatively short notice to take this fight, against the hometown guy, against the guy that he knows is that they're trying to make something out of. They're trying to make a poster boy out of this guy. So to take this assignment is incredible, but it's nothing new for Jaleel Willis. I mean, you look, he's had some struggles lately with some of his results, but you look at the guys he's been facing, it's been incredible. Ramazan Magomedov, who was a stud. Kyle Crutchmer, he got the victory there against the highly touted Kyle Crutchmer. Sabahu Masi, who may not necessarily have the most sparkling record, but is an absolute dog that goes in there and fights. Magomed Magomedov was in there as well, who's a very, very tough fighter as well. So, I mean, this guy has taken on, maybe people that aren't the household names, but that are stars, that are studs. And Jaleel Willis, for being willing to step in there and just say, hey, man, give me whoever you got. I'm in. Man, I think the guy deserves all the respect in the world. And, by the way, not backing down a little bit as the little trash talk back and forth between these two. The fight's getting a little flavor between them. They're kind of going back and forth, and Doumbe's known as an outspoken guy.
Chael Sonnen even had to chime in. Did you see that?
Yes. I mean, when you get the American gangster to chime in, you know that it's a solid back and forth.
He's like, I love what Jaleel's doing here. He's telling the fans in France, oh, you don't know what you're talking about in MMA. So this guy really isn't anything. Like, Chael was eloquently in breaking it down. It was pretty funny.
It's good. And listen, man, I mean, Jaleel is accurate. I mean, Cedric Doumbe is a world champion kickboxer. If this was a kickboxing match, the odds would be tremendously one-sided. I mean, you wouldn't give Jaleel Willis a chance, but it's not. It's a mixed martial arts contest. And again, Doumbe hasn't necessarily been, completely slow rolling. I mean, he has kind of, taken some less experienced guys. I mean, the Chamsudinov fight was a fight that people said, hey, could be dangerous. But it's a fight that, Doumbe took and would have won had it not been for a very, very weird situation that unfolded with the object in his foot. So look, this is, I mean, Doumbe deserves credit for taking this fight too, but in MMA, Doumbe is the less experienced product. Now, he's absolutely got knockout power. He can put you to sleep. So you have to be aware of that. But, I would imagine that Jaleel Willis, you might have intimate details about the game plan. You and I have not talked. I have no intimate details about the game plan. But as just an intelligent observer of mixed martial arts, I would not think anybody would put together a game plan where it's like, hey, let's just go outstrike this dude. Let's test him everywhere. Let's grapple with him a little bit. Let's push him. Let's make him work. Let's make him do some things that he may be uncomfortable with.
That's the game plan 100%. I talked to Jaleel this weekend. He says, I'm going to put a pace on him, and I'm going to make him work from the second. Yep. There's no settling in to any fight. We're not settling in. I'm going to be chaining my attacks. I'm going to be putting him in the cage, up against the cage. I'm going to be putting him into the clinch. Once he's there, I'm going to then pull off. I'm going to strike right back into it. He's like, I'm going to make him work. And what he did, and he even said it on his own social media, like he's not being shy about this. He's like, yes, he's a world champion kickboxer, but the way he is kickboxing in MMA isn't going to suit him well. Like he has flat outly said it, keeping his hands low because Jaleel is a great boxer. So listen, this is a lot of Jaleel, proving his worth not only to himself, but to his opponent, to Bellator. And he's doing a lot of this as, really you just have to these days. What I do know about Jaleel is he is a very soft-spoken guy. You've met him before. He is a very soft-spoken, just like kind-hearted soul guy from Memphis. But he is utterly confident, and he has not been shy about telling the Paris fans and Doumbe himself what he thinks.
I love it. It should be great, man. Paris has had some incredible crowds, right? I mean, obviously they've showed up for Doumbe, expecting another sellout here. I mean, they've had some great events, so it should be an incredible atmosphere. I love these. I know it may be challenging for some people that may be working in office that can't do this, but I love when you have these European events, whether it be the weekend or not. This is Friday, but it starts at 12 p.m. Eastern, right? So if you're hanging out, working and you're at your desk or whatever, you can pull it up. It's on HBO. Or I'm going to always do that. I'm going to always call it HBO Max. It's Max now.
HBO Max for crying out loud.
It's still Twitter. It's still Twitter, not X. So it's still HBO Max to me. But yeah, it's on that. So I mean, you can pull that up on an app, on your phone, whatever. You can watch it from your desk. So I think this is going to be a good card. The Bellator doesn't have nearly as many events as they did before, so that kind of concentrates the talent on there. You talk about these top two fights; they're big. Again, the crowds have been incredible in Paris for the card. The PFL is done over there, PFL Europe. So I think this is going to be a fun event. And again, it's not taking up your Friday night; it's on a Friday afternoon, so you can watch it pretty easily. I love those. I love when you got some MMA in the afternoon.
Does Doumbe get a flamboyant entrance in Bellator?
Oh, yeah, right. He gets to do whatever he wants, man. That's their poster guy, especially in Europe. You know what I mean? They realize what they have in him, and they, there's a reason they invested in him early in his MMA career. They understand that he is a star.
But like prop-wise, does he get to use props and stuff, you think?
They're going to let him do whatever he wants, man. They're going to let that man has walked to the cage with a mattress in hand because he was going to put his opponent to sleep. You know what I mean? They're going to let this man do what he wants. There's a little more flexibility. And look, and I think you got to do that, right? I mean, UFC president, God, I'm always going to do that too. UFC CEO Dana White has, often said that he likes the things kind of toned down a little bit. He's allowed a little bit more flexibility lately, right? Israel Adesanya has had a couple memorable entrances. They've done a couple little things here and there. But I think with your Bellator and PFL, you let the guys do what they want. They want to be over the top, let them be over the top. Embrace that showmanship, right? Because look, this is entertainment as well, man. I mean, there was a big time in my life when I thought I very much agreed with Dana White in the early days, right? I was like, we have to let people know this is not professional wrestling. We can't have professional wrestling entrances because we need people to know this is real. That was back in the time when people were like, are these actually real fights? Like are these scripted? It's like, no, but there's nobody on earth thinks that now. So I think, man, if people want to be, have a performance, be over the top, be crazy, like, let's do it, man. That's part of the fun.
No, I feel you, man, and it's fun for us as fans to watch as well.
Exactly.
Dana White in the post-fight on this past Saturday night mentioned about kind of moving away from the Apex. I got a couple questions on that.
Yep.
I assume they'll still run Apex shows, though, right?
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing to point out. I saw a lot of people kind of assuming what he was saying is that, man, we're done with the Apex. We're out. You know what I mean? We're moving on. Don't think that's going to be the case. It just makes far too much financial sense for them on some of these smaller shows. They save so much money. And, I'll point out, don't forget that, next month, WWE is going into the Apex for the very first time for an NXT show, right? So they've got this multi-million-dollar facility. They're going to continue to use it.
Well, so brings me to point number 2. Like, I understand, I'm taking my fan hat off and I'm putting my business hat on. Why? Well, and I get it because they want these fun St. Louis crowds and whatnot, and the cost associated with just running a show like that has got to be astronomical, right? And, if you're a multi-billion-dollar ESPN contract, that money is guaranteed. Now we've all read these things about, ESPN Plus subscriptions have been down the last couple quarters. Does that have anything to do with this is my bigger question.
I don't think so. I think the UFC is still, a big home run for ESPN and ESPN Plus.
Yeah, 100%. I get that. Yeah. But I guess specifically, do you think ESPN is saying, hey, let's try and get so let's move away from the Apex because that could entice some more Plus subscribers?
That's interesting. Do they have any feedback? Because there's certainly a difference in the atmospheres, right? I mean, that's the thing that I think people, you're smart. You're a business owner. You run businesses, so you get it, right? You can have these conversations. I mean, it's one thing to be like, man, it's way better when we have it with 15,000 people in an arena. Yeah, but you know how hard it is, first of all, to sell those tickets out? Like, it takes a lot of effort in marketing and getting it done. And then again, the associated costs, man, not just the venue costs themselves, but traveling your entire staff and all those people that are based in Las Vegas. I mean, the costs are insane. So, I mean,
it's infrastructure to get it there.
It's insane. So more than just shipping everything, right? How about that? I mean, just the cost associated. I mean, there's so many levels of cost associated that I think people aren't realistic about when they had the discussion about whether the Apex should be used or not. From a financial standpoint, the Apex makes all the sense in the world. Now, does ESPN say, yeah, but that atmosphere is a lot better when there's 15,000 people? Maybe. I think the big thing is, and this is also a business thing as well, is you have to think about it almost as an investment as well, right? Because there is something special when you go to your first UFC event, right? I mean, regardless of what you think about the UFC's business practices or how they do things or what criticisms you might have, if you've been to mixed martial arts events of any kind, you have to admit that the UFC does it better than anybody else, right? I mean, the show is just top notch. It's amazing. And the first time you go and you feel that, and you feel that energy, I mean, I think it takes your fandom to a different level. I mean, I think that's when people are like, oh, this is my jam. This is my thing. This is what I'm going to be a fan of. And so I think that, Dana looks at it from kind of a marketing perspective as well of how you continue to grow the sport, is that, yes, we'll get, our numbers on ESPN Plus if we just continue to do shows at the Apex. But, when we come to these towns, and I think it's key that he pointed out too, not just the towns that have it all the time. When you come somewhere that you don't go a lot. St. Louis, I think it had been 5-6 years since they had been there. Then those fans are like, I want to see it live. You got fans that weren't even fans the last time they were in town. You know what I mean? So it's an opportunity to really, hook people into the product. But with that all said, I mean, again, there's a lot of financial risk at play, man. Selling the tickets and getting that venue filled isn't an easy thing to do. It's not an easy guarantee. I think the Apex shows will continue to happen, but you're hearing from Dana that, yeah, we're going to make a greater effort to get this thing out on the road as often as possible.
And then I don't know if I'm imagining this. I'm almost positive I read something somewhere, but that any details have kind of gone out the window.
About you got a busy life. You got a busy life.
Yeah. Fight Night Series in Saudi Arabia.
So they signed an additional event, even though they haven't even done the first event. They've already signed an extended agreement to do another event, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, their entertainment arm is actually going to be the presenting sponsor of the show at the Sphere. So they're going to sign up for that. And yes, even though there hasn't even been one show in Saudi Arabia yet, they're already committed to coming back with another Fight Night event in Saudi Arabia and with a Power Slap event as well. So they're going to kind of put those things together. And Dana is saying, Power Slap is something that you're going to see more of, kind of paired with UFC events where we do, we go to a city and we do a Power Slap on Friday and a UFC on Saturday. And he alluded to, now he's not the one doing the booking, but, he alluded to the fact, and then maybe you see a WWE on Sunday, all in the same venue, which man, you talk about some of the costs. Now you're talking about being able to defer some of those costs and being able to change those, because while they don't have the same setup, if you do have, and look,
lighting and cussing and all that audio.
That's it. If you're like, hey, we got the same company and we're not using you for one night, we're using you for 3 nights. Now, I need you to make some adjustments to the lighting trusses. I need you to make some different things here and there, but that's going to bring down your rate, right? You might even get a lower rate on the arena itself. If you go to an arena and say, hey, listen, we don't want to just rent your venue out for one night. We want to rent your venue out for 3 nights, and it's 3 different properties, and we think we can sell it out every night. You know what I mean? So there's so many synergies and costs. Again, you understand this as a business owner. You can speak to this more so than the average MMA fan. I know it's just nice to say, like, oh, let's go out of the Apex. Let's go to the arenas. Man, you have to think as a businessman in this. And it makes all the sense in the world to do these things.
All righty. Well, what do you got coming up this weekend?
I am not going to be at the UFC event this weekend. That is at the Apex here in Las Vegas. Edson Barbosa versus Lerone Murphy in the main event. A couple decent matchups in there. But I am going to be making my way to Belgium. So I'll be on the mic. ApolloMMA.com is where it's going to take place. It's a brand new organization. It's a buddy of mine that has done some other organizations but wants to launch one of his own out there. He's committed to really growing the market in Belgium. Belgium's it's long been kind of more of a kickboxing type market, right? And so the MMA game is a little bit behind some of the other markets in the European region. And he's, kind of a lifelong MMA guy. And he's like, look, I want to help develop this. I want to give an outlet for these guys to fight, have a platform on, to really get known, to better themselves, to get the experience and develop the market out there. So I'm boarding a flight on Wednesday to head out to Brussels, Belgium. See, I can humble brag too. You're not the only one that gets to talk about your European adventures. I'm heading out to Belgium. I'll be on the mic with a good friend of mine, Simon Head, a longtime European journalist who's going to be broadcasting with me. So I'll be out in Belgium this week calling some fights.
All righty.
How about you?
I'll just expect to be your color commentator on the next Belgium show, because obviously, you couldn't get me in on the first one. You didn't want to overstep your bounds.
You're so busy. I would have felt like I was intruding upon you to even suggest that your name should be associated with it. I know you got, big family things going on, big professional commitment. So, believe me, it killed me inside not to get that booked, right? It killed me inside, but I was like, I can't put that burden of a trip to Europe, on my man Emax. So I certainly,
I appreciate you looking out. I appreciate you doing that for me.
I got your back. I got your back, which is why you're not going to Europe.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, what do I got going on this weekend? I don't know. Having a baby, probably
this weekend, right? It's coming up.
Well, so we're there. We're at due date, man. I have my phone right here, and I have it right next to me because I got to tell this funny story.
Let's hear it.
So, we're any day now, right? Any hour now. And so I'm commentating / reffing an MMA card. Attitude MMA was on the LFA Fight Network just this past weekend. Go back and watch it. You can see probably the first time in MMA history somebody does double duty, reffing and commentating. So I commentated up until the pro cards, and then they wanted me to be the ref. The state wanted me to be the ref for the pro card. Done. Okay. So prior to leaving, my wife goes like, hey, just have your phone on you. Have it on the desk when you're commentating, right in front of you. And I said, yeah, sure. And she's like, but then when you get into the cage, make sure to hand it to Grant. And so Grant can have it when you're in the cage. And I said, okay. So I prepped Grant and I said, Grant, if this thing rings, or I told my wife to text, if it texts, you get my attention, right? No matter
Mid-fight.
Get my attention. And so he goes, okay. So we're getting set for the main event. I'm in the cage. The first fighter is walking into the cage, and Grant stands up from the commentary booth and he's like, Eric. I said, oh, okay. So I hop out of the cage really quick. And I just opened up my phone, and my wife's like, hey, should we invite my mom to brunch tomorrow?
Bro.
And so I text back, sure. Do not text me. I go, it's the main event. I'm in the cage. Do not text me unless it's a baby. I hand the phone back to Grant. I walk back in the cage. The second fighter is now making their walk. Grant stands up 3 minutes later. Eric. and it's my wife. And I go, here, just put it up to the cage. I put my code in, and so what my wife responds back, okay.
I just said don't text. I just said don't text.
Oh, okay, I won't.
Oh, that is hilarious. That is incredible. So what I mean, let's say because you're talking about during the walkouts. Let's say that happens in the middle of the first round. What do you do?
I finished the fight, but like if I had another one off there was utterly capable refs to jump in for me.
Okay, so yeah, so you finish out the fight, but then you say I got to excuse myself for the rest of the night.
Yeah,
that's amazing. That's amazing. That's a great story.
Do not text me again unless 3-4 minutes later. Okay,
that's amazing. You get the text.
What are you thinking? And she was like, "Yeah, I wasn't.
I guess I wasn't."
Yeah.
I'm just imagining like the text goes off and it's like, it's not even okay. It's just like the thumbs up reaction. You know what I mean? Like,
no, that's what it was. It was the thumbs up. It wasn't okay. It was the thumbs up.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a great story. That's a great story. Well,
I'm on Baby Watch 24 right now. 2020.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, let her know Monday is full. We got plans on Monday. So we need to get this thing out by the weekend. And home, I guess. I can't have you at the hospital. I mean, you can be the hospital. If you wanted to join from the hospital, we can do it there. She can make a cameo. I don't know.
She knows better.
You got to take. Awesome, man.
All right. Well,
congratulations this weekend.
Thank you. I'm praying for a healthy baby girl and mom and baby make it through fine. But
we'll be sending those thoughts for you. It's not Belgium. I'll have a nice cold Belgian beer for you along the way, man. I'll let you know.
Man. Well, with that all being said, Derrick Lewis, another knockout. Exciting Bellator, top heavy card for sure on Friday on Max. Saturday, UFC pay-per-view, or not pay-per-view, UFC Apex. And what is to make of future UFC shows with possibly a heavy Apex load, slimming out remains to be seen. With all that being said, for John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.